to know that you're still here with us. Rise and Shine continues, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakura.
Exactly, and right about now we have our guest in the studio. He is Dr. Sylvester Udoh, and of course he is the chairman, Nigerian Medical Association of Nigeria as a Akwa Ibom State chapter. Exactly. So good to have you in our studios.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. How was your journey here? Let's start there.
Yes.
Well, I told one of your staff that, what?
Let's leave it there.
Let's give it out the
The
way.
truth is, like, we
leave it
ask
there.
most of our guests this question. Maybe after the session, we will compile a lot of the responses
right?
and make it a
And make it-
thriller
yeah,
for
that's
us.
What I said to her, it's better said in vernacular.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not English,
really?
yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's on the side. Oh, we're talking about COVID-19 now. And so far, so good. We've seen a lot of persons responding to vaccine. What has been the major challenges with that?
Well, for the vaccination, for like most things new, we have the initial hesitancy, and especially with the background of a lot of myths and misinformation
That's
that
right.
trailed the virus itself.
Right?
Then the virus was also seen as a pretext to introduce so many things. Okay, let's just, I think right now everybody knows, we're talking about the Antichrist and the one world system and everything. So the vaccine has been viewed in that light, that the COVID virus was a pretext to bring the vaccine, and now the vaccine is here. Most people initially were very hesitant about taking it, but over the time we have been seeing a lot of new interest. A lot of people we have termed the ones who were on there. Let's wait and see what happens. The first people who took it, and when they waited for about 1 month, 2 months, and
Nothing
those
happened.
people were still alive, they now felt safe to take it. And I think there have been an increased demand for the vaccination. I received calls. Incidentally, not just the NMA chairman for Akwa Ibom State, I'm also the state immunization officer for Akwa Ibom State.
Great.
So I'm responsible for immunization activities in Akwa Ibom.
Okay.
So I receive a lot of calls, and there's a lot of demand for the vaccination.
Do you think, from your own opinion, that the average Akwa Ibom person does not have so much information about this vaccine, or do you think there's more to be done to sensitize the people of its relatively good attributes?
I think both play out in this scenario we have found ourselves. A lot of persons don't have the information, like you've said, about the vaccines, and we also need to do a lot of sensitization about the vaccines. So that is ongoing.
Okay.
When you look at a typical business model, the introductory phase is usually like a plateau that is very low on a scale. When you draw a graph, you have a parallel, that's a vertical line and a horizontal line, and you're supposed to see an increase towards the vertical line. In the introductory phase, usually you see something that is little, called it the log phase and lag phase, so it usually doesn't move that fast, but over a period of time you see it begin to go up.
Yes.
And I think we're at that phase where it's beginning to go up, and I think we'll get there.
All right, let me quickly ask this. There are issues that, or maybe speculations that even though you are vaccinated, you're not still safe. As in, you still have to observe normal COVID-19 protocols. Is that true?
I would say there's a lot of truth to what you've said.
Okay.
Those that have been vaccinated still have to protect themselves against getting infected.
Really?
And also, most especially not for them, but for people, their loved ones, that they will go back home and remove their mask and stay with. For them, they are like maybe people go to work. Then some people are wearing bulletproof, and the others are not wearing bulletproof. Then those who are wearing bulletproof are busy raising their head up for their enemies to know that there are people in that location, and they shoot at that place. Invariably, those who are vested with bulletproof will not be down with the bullet, but the other ones who are not vested will be down with the bullet. So that's the whole essence about those who are vaccinated still being told to still go ahead with the safety protocols, not just for themselves but for others around them, so that they don't expose those persons.
In other words, you're saying that they can't get reinfected.
They can get infected, but if they get infected, their chances of running a severe case is very
slim. Okay.
Yes. They likely will come down with it, but it will look like a flu. They could tell you like, oh, I just felt ill about 2 days now. I had some body weakness and pains, but it's over now. That's a typical story of someone who has been vaccinated being exposed to the virus again. This is how the vaccine, I don't know, I try to use real life scenarios to define it. That you have a security man at your house or around you doesn't mean that if criminals come, they will not make some skirmishes and scatter the place more before the soldiers overcome them and put them in place. It's like that. The virus will enter the body, and depending on the viral load at the point of exposure, you could have the virus begin to replicate and begin to multiply itself. By the time the soldiers get there and mop it up, it's about 2-3 days, and that will explain the 2-3 days of illness of the person who was exposed to it. But over time, if the person's immune system is strong enough, which we see after 2 shots of the vaccine, the immune system is better. And even we are beginning to hear of booster doses. Beginning that the more you get these booster doses, it's like an athlete. The more you gym, the more you exercise, the stronger you are. I don't know how many of you love boxing. There's a certain boxer that I used to love so much, Manny Pacquiao. There was one fight he had with one of his opponents, and they showed the build up to the fight. His opponent was busy in the gym doing all sort of. As at then, I don't think Manny had lost a lot of fight. I think maybe one or no loss at all. But that's when he was into politics. He was busy going to places, visiting motherless baby, giving the poor things. When they met in the fight, the guy trashed the. I think that was the first time I saw him being knocked out. So the truth of this is, the more you get exposed to the antigens, and we prefer that you get exposed to the antigens by vaccination and not by infection. Because the infection is the real deal, is the virus, and the likelihood is it's going to be going to overcome and overwhelm your system, which would lead to death. But the vaccine it's a dummy. It looks like the virus, but it's not the virus. So it doesn't replicate to cause a disease. But the body doesn't recognize the difference. It fights it as if it was the real thing. And it builds antibodies. It's these antibodies that are the soldiers that fight the real infection when one is infected.
Now, Nigerians are actually concerned about the Covid-19, the first wave and the second wave, and now we're talking about the third wave. Now, what are the vital organs that are being affected by this COVID? And then these vaccinations are going well. Are they actually saving these vital organs from going down completely?
When there's virus in a human being, the likelihood is that the virus will multiply and will overcome the entire system. To multiply, it will find itself in the lungs, find itself in the kidney, in the liver, in the spleen, in the brain, every part of the body. The virus will get there. When there's virus in the blood gets to every part of the body. So the virus will just be in the blood, and the blood will take it to anywhere the blood is going to. So it gets there. So the presentation is basically a function of or an expression of how the viral load has multiplied in the target organ it found itself.
Okay.
If the virus entered the blood and went and lodged in the lungs, that is where most of the features will be expressive from.
Okay.
You'll be seeing things that will show this thing is in the lungs, like coughing, like difficulty breathing, like we'll be having, because it's an infective process, you'll be having fever, you'll be having a headache, general body weakness, but the location of the virus and the multiplication of the virus in an organ will show the affectation of that organ. If it's so much in the kidney, you expect the kidney to shut down. Because what the virus does, it enters into a cell, begins to multiply. One copy becomes 10 million copies. 10 million copies in a cell that wasn't designed to carry 10 million cells will burst and die.
Yes.
And if that happens in a million cells, that means all the cells in that organ have died. So that organ stops working. So
Talking
that's
about,
just how it works.
let me take you on that symptoms. We pretty much see that there are no much differences between symptoms of malaria and that of COVID.
Yeah.
What are those peculiar symptoms that can be like a warning sign for a person to know that, hey, this is coming?
Okay, when our COVID virus came, I think there were two features that distinguish it from other infective processes. Like generally, COVID virus infection, it's the symptoms are what you call non-specific. You see them in almost every infective process. Whether it's malaria, whether it's a bacteria causes pneumonia, or bacteria that causes
Common cold, yeah.
those symptoms are just that. But there was something that was peculiar to COVID, at least in the first phase, the first wave when it started. That was the loss of smell and the loss of taste.
Okay.
Those were things that once it was found in anybody, in fact, once you complained it, you would think of COVID virus until proven otherwise. So the other things are really like in the, I don't know whether I should scare you. But there are parts of the world that already started talking about fourth wave. Yeah, and it's been attributed to a different strain, different from what we have been seeing now.
Yeah.
And it's coming with a sort of atypical presentations that we're not seeing in the other waves, like diarrhea, like conjunctivitis, like so things that you really cannot put your finger and say this is what is causing it. But now we are saying if you get sick and you think it's malaria, think again that it's likely COVID before malaria. And whenever we are in an active outbreak, where you be hearing of no new cases, 20, 50, 60, during that such active period of the viral activity, if someone is sick to me, I think of COVID first before I think of any other thing.
Now let's
so I'll screen you for COVID.
Yeah.
Exclude COVID before I treat you for malaria.
Okay, now talking about the different variants, we've seen Delta variants come on board here, and we're seeing, like you just said, fourth wave. Does it mean that each time a wave passes, another one comes with a different? Is it doctored? What's your opinion on that? Could it be like they're doctoring it somewhere?
Or
as a scientist, I will base all my statements on facts.
Okay.
In most viruses, because of the rate of replication, they do it so fast, and like most things done in a hurry, there are a lot of mistakes that are made. So in the viral replication, when the virus is multiplying itself, being very fast like we see in the COVID virus, it's likely to make some mistakes in its replication, either in its assembling of its particles after making a new viral particle, trying to put everything in one place. One or two proteins might be missing or might be added in extra. Whenever such a mistake happens, that leads to a mutation. Whatever you have as an offspring that is different from its parent is a mutant strain. Two things can happen to that mutant. Either it becomes weak because of that mistake, or it becomes strong because of that mistake. The weak ones just die and they go away. Nobody remembers them that they were in sport. Nobody even remembers them. That guy just came in and with this one album and it's gone.
Yeah.
But the strong ones come and they thrive and they stay and they cause a disease and they usually most times stronger than their parent. And like we saw in the Delta strain. When the Delta strain came, we saw that it was stronger than what started this whole process in the first place. So that is usually seen as a normal history and progression of viral multiplications and replications. So for a scientist like me, except we went and caught someone who was actively caught in the process of doctoring it, I cannot say.
There were speculations that it came out from Wuhan, China, of course, from a laboratory there. So it could be that maybe exactly.
I think things like that. We have a system in place in the world that should have arrested such a situation. If it was really done in the lab, we have not heard the last. I think we'll hear it eventually. The persons involved will be arrested, and if it's being doctored in the lab, the truth will all come out. Nothing hides forever. The truth will come out. But what we're facing as the truth now is active viral infections, like COVID virus.
Okay.
Now,
And we
just
need
before
to be prepared for those
Okay, just before we
infections.
go on a short break, now, you talked about the booster. Can you give more light on that? You talk about the COVID booster,
The
vaccine
COVID
booster.
booster, it's a proposal.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. A lot of countries, and starting from the US, they are first headed from Joe Biden, the US president, talking about a booster dose. The booster dose is just, like I said, it's to see how you can, let's say after the second dose, the person had like 1 billion antibodies.
Okay.
If you give a booster dose, the antibodies can increase to 10 billion.
Okay.
That's more soldiers being recruited for the war. And you expect that if you have more soldiers,
Yeah.
you
win
should
the war.
win the war.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's
well-
the whole essence of the booster.
All right, let me cut you
proposal.
there. We'll go on a brief time out now, and when we return, we'll take a look at the different vaccines that are available and, of course, their side effects. Don't go anywhere.
I noticed my-
Nigeria received her first batch of vaccines from COVAX Industry in March 2021. The arrival marked a historic step towards the goal of ensuring equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines globally. With over 80 million recorded cases and over 1.7 million deaths, providing safe and effective vaccines to curb the ravaging COVID-19 has emerged a global priority. Nigeria's Ministry of Health has assured Nigerians of the safety of the vaccines. Over 9 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine has been administered since its arrival in Nigeria. But the question remains, what is the level of acceptance of the vaccine by the average Nigerian? Another case in point is, are the vaccines readily available? And its side effects, if any, are they manageable?
You're welcome back, and many thanks for staying on the show. Yes, we're still talking about COVID-19.
That's
It is
right.
trending, and that is what is the subject for discussion today. We'll be taking a look at the different vaccines. Okay, Mr. Mo, now we understand that there are different types. You have the Moderna, the Johnson Johnson. What informs these different types, and what are their peculiar differences?
I think right now we have a lot of vaccines that have been approved. Were the first four that the whole world woke up to. Starting from the Pfizer vaccine, then we now had the Moderna, then we had the Johnson and the AstraZeneca vaccine. Those are the four that Nigeria has started work with. But I believe that as more vaccines are being approved, and that will be also getting those vaccines too. So they work in different ways. For instance, the Moderna and the Pfizer work by a kind of a DNA technology, where a DNA particle is introduced into the body, and the body makes the antigen that looks like the viral antigen. Then the body recognizes the viral antigen and begins to fight it, and the process makes antibodies. All vaccines work like that. You introduce either a part of the organism you want immune system to be built against. So any foreign body at all, any foreign body that the body sees, if it stays too long in the body will start fighting it. Even food. Some part of food that the body might not recognize, if it stays too much, the body will go after it, because it's a foreign body. It's not supposed, especially if it finds itself in the blood, which seldom happens. So the body, whenever it sees a foreign particle, it begins to send things to go and check it out. And in the process of checking it out, they begin to say, this is an enemy. They begin to build antibodies, so to fight it. And in the process, if they win, you have what is known as memory cells who stay in the body. And anytime that offender comes again, the memory cells are triggered. So we have seen this before. This is what we did. And they now mobilize those antigen lines and produce more of it to also, and that's in the second exposure, the likelihood is that disease will last shorter than the other ones. So we're talking about the other vaccine. One does direct introduction of the viral DNA material into the body. The body makes the antigens, and the antigens are presented to the immune system. The immune system makes the antibodies to fight the antigens. But the antigens in this instance of vaccination is not a disease-causing antigen, because it's not a disease. It's just part of the viral protein that the body is now responding to. So but when the main infection comes, they now fight it because they identify that protein that had already been primed against.
So you're basically saying that all the types of vaccines work the same way.
Ultimately.
So what informs the choice of a particular brand being administered?
The choice, the effectiveness, the efficiency. So many things. For instance, you hear things like Pfizer and Moderna has about 92% efficacy. You understand? You hear that Astra has like 66% efficacy, and some vaccines will come and the efficacy will be too low to even be considered. So it depends on how effective it is when introduced into there are people that are used as trials, who present themselves to be used as trials, and the result, as is seen in the number of persons that participated in that trial, will inform the efficacy of the vaccine. And that's what will eventually lead to it being approved and being used.
Okay, so for these different vaccines we have right now, which of them can be administered to children and pregnant women? Are there, disparities? Are there different types that you can administer to children and to pregnant women?
The four vaccines that I've mentioned now do not have any approval to be used in persons less than 18 years of age. All the four vaccines I've mentioned.
So are you saying that children do not have any?
No, children have not gotten for now. But in some countries, when you watch some foreign news, you hear some countries are gradually introducing it to those younger age groups,
Okay.
starting from 1 to 5, then gradually going up to 10, then eventually we get to 18. But I think those will depend on the trials of those vaccines on those age group.
Okay.
The reason why I've not been using that age group is that the trial did not involve those age group. So you cannot talk about their safety profile when it comes to that age group until you have done some trial. But don't forget, there's also the ethical issue of someone who is less than 18 giving you consent to now go on trial. So the issue of having persons at that age being part of a trial, the ethical issues and all that will lead to the delay in having a vaccine approved for that age group. But over time, all those will be overcome, other safety profiles will be modified, and at the end, we'll eventually get either clearance to use the ones we have now on children, or maybe a different one.
Let me quickly ask you this. Does it mean that those below 18 are not pretty much exposed to contacting this virus?
They are, definitely they are.
So how do they manage that?
Well, hopefully, we've not seen mortalities in them so badly. And that's like what you call a silver lining in the cloud. We're not seeing those children below those age, at least the mortality in them is very insignificant. So we can't really say that they are in danger. But we do not know the new strengths that will come, what they could do to children.
So would you attribute that to the antibodies fighting?
No, not antibodies, because antibodies only come up when someone has been exposed to something. So either being exposed by a vaccine or by infection. But rather that is by vaccine, because the infection you cannot predict the outcome. So that's why the vaccine option is preferred, because the vaccine you can actually predict how it will come out. But the infective outcome, just trying to wake up, the person is gone. I've heard of people who were infected in 2 days, they are dead.
We'll look at side effects in a bit, but for then, in case you don't know, you could join this conversation on our social media handles. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook with the handle at SpectrumTv NG. And of course, you can join up on our website at www.spectrumtv.ng. Now, back to you, sir. Now, you made mention of quite a number of things, but one of the issues that has been raised or that constantly comes up and pretty much affects how people receive the vaccine are side effects. A lot of persons say there's a lot of things that will happen. I don't want to say all the time, But then, are there side effects? And if they are they manageable?
Okay. All right, thank you. I think if you carry any product from the pharmacy, look at it. You're going to see a side effect. Even your friendly paracetamol.
Why do you call it friendly?
Because we all it's an over-the-counter drug. You can just walk into a drugstore and you get it as much as you want. People take as many tablets as they want and they walk about like nothing. But if you look at the profile of that drug, you're going to see side effects. And if you see the side effect, you'll not take any drug. Our vaccines there are things that have been associated with it. And we tend to call them adverse events following immunization. Because though they happen after immunization has been gotten, you can't really say it's the immunization that caused it. It could have just been a coincidence. I mean, the last time any of you had a malaria, did you have a warning sign? Did you know as at that morning you were going to have malaria? Okay, let's just say that it was that day that you were supposed to have your malaria. And you now went and took the vaccine. And your malaria came upon you. The first thing that will come to your mind is that these symptoms all started when I took my vaccine.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you didn't receive a signal at home or a tally at home that you were one of those chosen for malaria infection this morning. So that by evening you would have known that you were supposed to come down with malaria that evening. But you took your vaccine and you had your malaria that evening, you're going to attribute it to the vaccine.
Okay.
That is the first thing first.
Okay.
So in the immunization, we try as much as possible to ask people who are not feeling fine not to take the vaccine.
Okay.
If you're on medication for an infective disease, we will try to say you should wait till when you recover, you start give you your vaccine, so that you don't attribute whatever happens to you to the vaccine and give the vaccine a bad name.
Okay.
Understand?
Okay.
So, but other things like being treated for hypertension, diabetes, even a quiet HIV infection, someone who is asymptomatic, who is on antiretroviral and is not sick, we recommend that they still take the vaccine. Generally, you look at before you give, you take a small history to know whether the person will be a good candidate for that day.
Okay.
For that day, it might not be a good candidate, but 2 days after, it's okay to take it.
So, in other words, these examinations, like you said, these things have to be done for each patient who comes forward.
They take small history
Okay.
from each person that comes.
Okay.
They take small
That's
history, and we also ask you to volunteer anything you think might be of interest to us. There are people who have they know the history of allergy to drugs, not the active ingredient, maybe some preservatives in the medication formulation, because there are some things that are put in the medication who don't play part in the treatment. Their work is just to stabilize the active ingredient, stabilize the antigen that is in the vaccine, and those stabilizers can actually be what they are reacting to.
Now,
okay, just quickly before we go, because our time is fast spent, let's take a look at some of the misconceptions, because addressing that could actually propel a lot of people to go get vaccinated. Now, there are issues that some people feel the vaccines are not pretty much safe, which is what we're trying to address now. Other issues could be religious grounds. Come on. So how do you address it?
Okay, I'll first start with the first one you talked about, which is the issue of safety, and a lot of things have been attributed to the vaccine. I took the vaccine. I'm sure it's not a ghost you're seeing.
No, we're seeing you
Cameras don't pick ghosts, so you can be sure this is a human being talking to you. I've taken my 2 shots and I'm alive. You understand? My family, everybody that is eligible, I've taken, and they're alive. So, and I've tried so many times when NEPA takes the light out to try to illuminate the house. I take these bulbs and I put on where I took the vaccine, and the bulbs don't illuminate. So I don't know where those people that bulbs illuminate in their hand. For me to be a good thing in a country like this, we have light problems. If we all have our bulbs in our pockets and whenever it's there, we just remove it and put on our hand, and we have light in church and in class when we are reading in night class.
What a new source of energy.
So how would that be a bad thing? That's just on the lighter note.
Okay.
Then other things again, like a magnet and all that, I've tried to demonstrate that in everyone that has taken this vaccine. I've not seen it. Then the issue of it affecting the other room. There are people who have also said that the affectation is two-sided. It's like a double-edged sword. Some people say it affects them negatively. Some says, Madam is happy after taking this vaccine. So one doesn't know which side of the divide the person would fall. Generally, there's this, we collect data of these adverse events for the immunization. And we have people who are supposed to report whatever they have experienced after an immunization. And I want to say that on that list in Akwa Ibom, I've not seen those symptoms. Other people are not reporting it, or are really not happening. So, but since we, as scientists, we work with data and with facts, the data available to me doesn't show that we're having that problem in Akwa Ibom.
Okay, let me take it from there.
Then, the religious aspect you talked about. I'm a Christian. And for a Christian, your source should never be social media or people influencing you. I've asked a man of God, I said, sir, you're a man of God. Have you talked to God about this vaccine? What has he told you? That's where we start from.
What was his response?
He said, I have followed up, but he has not. He said, please, sir, do. But when you're talking to us, let it be that it's God that told you.
Okay.
You have to be sure it's God that is telling you something about this vaccine. And the truth is that most people that are just talking about it on a religious grounds are just speculations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understand? Maybe I with due apology to who might take this wrongly. It's only a madman that will not talk to God and come and say God told him this.
Okay.
And now start telling us stories about the vaccine. For us, I think the religious aspect, they might tie it up. I mean, people twist things a lot.
Yeah.
So not be surprised that this could be twisted, and we could even tie it to one or two phrases and verses in the Bible and to sell whatever they're selling. But I want to say about killing and maiming people, I'm here. I've not been maimed, I've not been killed. About lighting bulbs and magnets and other things, I've not seen it. I don't know whether I'm carrying a unique ID someday that maybe when something happens, all of us who took the vaccine will be taken up or taken down. I don't know. But the things I know, that as many as took the vaccine that I know are still alive today.
And you
So
don't have
let me cut you
nightmares.
there. You made mention of taking 2 shots already.
Yes.
How many shots is a person supposed to or expected to take?
I've told you that right now the recommended number of shots is 2.
2.
And I think one of the reasons for that is we have a world population of over 6 billion. And this is a global infection.
That's right.
It's not confined to one particular part of the world. If, let's say, this outbreak was just in one continent, we will not have these issues. But we are having a global outbreak. So the vaccine that needs to be produced for the global population.
Okay.
And we're talking about almost 80% of that population being eligible for that vaccine.
Okay.
So we're talking about almost 4 billion vaccines have to be made, or more than that. The race to make that, it's a process, it's not an event. It takes time. So if you have the vaccine for 2 billion, and you're now suggesting that people should take a booster dose, take 10 dose and 4 dose, you'll find out that in 1 year, a lot of those eligible population will not have gotten the vaccine.
Okay.
So that's why we're sticking at 2 doses from now. Until when everybody have taken, then the likelihood is that there will be booster doses
Now,
for everybody.
there were questions raised, on social media about the people that would have access to these vaccines. Now, can anyone just walk into any health center and just take the vaccine?
That has been happening ever since.
Okay.
The initial, the vaccination process has been divided into 4 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. We have been through phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
Phase 1 was for health workers and people who were considered as first frontline health workers, frontline responders, even the police, the army, military personnel. So they made up about 0.5% of the general population. So that was the phase 1. The phase 2 now expanded it and included people with comorbidities and all that, and they also got their vaccine. Right now we're about to start the phase 3, and some states have begun. Ubong will be joining anytime soon. We are in the process of doing our levels of training, the state level training, the LGA level training. Then we roll out to about 50% of the eligible population. We are targeting about 1.4 million Ubomites in the phase 3 that is commencing in a few days' time. So that generally means that people can just waltz into any health facility and get their vaccine.
Okay, just before we go, let me ask you this.
It's free.
Very important.
It has always been free.
Emphasize
It's always been free.
Great.
If somebody tells you appreciate the boys, it's really not payment, and it's not compulsory. Now in Nigeria, even you use the ATM. After collecting your money, ATM will even tell you anything for the boys.
That's funny. But I like to find out. Let's get to know this. What's the method? What's the drive? Apart from normal sensitization, is there any other means you that government or your organization is doing to get people to be more receptive of this, maybe to get it more faster?
Well, I think there are laws that have been proposed. We heard of a state that has made it mandatory that all their civil servants must take the vaccine before they go to work. I've heard in some places where they say, okay, if you refuse to take the vaccine, present 48 hours PCR test. Almost every 72 hours must produce a test to show you are not positive. Every 72 hours. I think even you after 72 hours you'll be tired of sticking something through your nostril. It's easier to take the vaccine. So I believe that things are being put in place to make sure that will happen. And I think until when we get there, we'll be able to enforce it. And for now, there are really no laws against forcing anybody to take it. But we are still advocating and appealing to persons that you're better off using a seatbelt when you're driving. It doesn't mean that because you got to your destination without being involved in a road traffic accident, that you're on your way back from Lagos, you should not put on your seatbelt. You understand? The vaccination is like using a seatbelt while you're driving. Your chances of surviving an accident is greatest when you're wearing your seatbelt. So in this COVID outbreak, COVID era that we are living in, you have a higher chance of surviving if you're vaccinated.
It's all right. Thank you very much, sir. I think we want to call it a wrap right here, and I want to thank you for being part of the show. And we believe that when next we invite you, you would graciously come around.
Exactly.
That will happen, right?
You guys will need to have a chopper too.
We're working on that.
I actually got to a place that was so terrible, and I saw a road that looked like a diversion, and in front looked like that was the exit of that diversion. And I entered, and I lost about 10 minutes.
My goodness.
Don't tell me you weren't admiring the nature.
I'm already used to the
Anyway, all right, thank you very much. We'll take a short break and look at social media reactions on the show. Please stay, don't go anywhere.